Like many people, I've been watching Partygate with anticipation, with what could happen next. A lot of us were expecting Boris Johnson to get another fine. We knew that he was at least six of these parties that we know the Met were investigating, and we know that had they said themselves they'd broken the rules. So we knew Boris Johnson was in line for at least six more fines. So what has happened here is that it seems the Met may have tried to, whitewash Boris Johnson getting another fine. Um, Whether that is the case or not, we don't know. But there is a lot of anger by a lot of civil servants that Johnson has not received another fine, and not just civil servants in sort of the larger Whitehall machine, but civil servants working in number 10. So there is a lot of anger now, not only just, from the public in general, but even now from the civil servants. And guess what? Now the Met investigation is over. Next week, at some point, we don't know when it's going to drop, but it's going to drop like an absolute, probably like a lightning bolt from the heavens. The Sue Gray report is due now next week. She has said she's going to release it next week. We don't know when she's going to release it. We don't know if number 10 or the Conservatives are going to try any chicanery or anything like that to try and, block it or anything like that. Although I think if they did, I think they'd get even more of a bigger backlash. I think it is going to come out, and we already know from the people that have said this is not going to put Boris Johnson in a very good light. And from a lot of other people have said, and what we've been seeing, this report itself should be the catalyst that makes Boris Johnson quit. A lot of MPs have been saying, well, I'm not going to pass judgment until I see the Sue Gray report. Well, guess what? Comes out next week. So we'll see which direction they think the wind is indeed blowing. Might we see, maybe next week, maybe the week after, might we see those letters calling for a vote of no confidence in Johnson happen? Might we even see a vote of no confidence next week in Boris Johnson? And as I've said, given the numbers, there's 84 MPs who haven't declared either way, who are going to be the deciding ones who decide Boris Johnson's future. So let's get into some of this reporting about what's been going on happening, and of course the closing of this police investigation in and around Partygate. But before we do that, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and an organization link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching. And those are people who do help support the channel. So over we go to The Guardian, who's been reporting on this with the title of Civil Servants and Number 10 Advisors Furious Over a Single Fine for Boris Johnson. Civil servants and special advisors have reacted with fury and disbelief after Scotland Yard confirmed that Boris Johnson only got one of 126 fines levied for the law-breaking parties at the heart of Downing Street and Whitehall. The Metropolitan Police came under intense pressure to explain how it actually reached its conclusions after Downing Street said that officers confirmed no further action would be taken against the Prime Minister, despite him attending gatherings for which others were fined. The Met's Police 4-month, £460,000 investigation has now concluded, paving the way for the publication of the full report by the senior civil servant Sue Gray next week. Her preliminary report found, quote, failures of leadership and judgment by different parts of Number 10 and the Cabinet Office. A former Met chief said the force was open to claims it had bungled the investigation unless it took steps to explain itself. Brian Paddock, a Liberal Democrat peer, said The Met Police has no defence to the accusations that it gave the Prime Minister one fixed penalty notice, as it was the minimum that he could be fined. But it did not do so for other events for other political reasons, he said. The decision not to explain is a mistake. It was a mistake not to investigate it in the first place. And they said that there was no need to investigate. And of course, they then issued 126 fines, which is not good for their credibility. And I'd agree, it is not good for the police's credibility at all. The 126 fines were issued to over 83 people. So as you can see, there will have been multiple fines. If there's 83 people received those 126 fines, there have to have been multiple people received fines. So why wasn't Boris Johnson included in those multiple fines? Why? We should know that. And it'll be interesting to see if there is a push now to reveal that. So out of the 126 fines issued, 83 people, 35 men, 48 women, and with at least one person receiving 5 fixed penalty notices. 5! The Met Police said the fines were typically about £50 and covered events held on 8 separate dates. Officials who were among those fines was struggling to actually understand how Johnson could have escaped further censure. His wife, Carrie, and the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, received one of each for celebrating the Prime Minister's birthday in the June of 2020, when the indoor gatherings, except for work purposes, were banned. One in Whitehall source pointed out that junior civil servants had received fixed penalty notices for going to at least one event which the Prime Minister not only attended, but also gave a speech at. Another said that the 20-somethings I felt sorry for, who went on to events that their seniors were leaving bashes and things. A former number 10 staffer said that the COVID pandemic, during the COVID pandemic, it was usual for Johnson to wander over to officials sharing a drink while praising them for letting off steam. One other official said that the source resembled there was a resentment was the fact that the evidence presented in good faith to Gray by junior officials was then handed to the police, while more senior figures declined to cooperate. This is what one said. So some people worry that they ended up will end up being penalized because before the police were even involved, they tried to help with the report when others stood back and maybe got away with it. There is widespread anger at the Cabinet Secretary, Simon Case, who was described by one Whitehall insider as a submarine, who had offered no leadership or even counsel throughout the crisis. People trusted their bosses and they got fined. You'd think someone might acknowledge that at some stage, they said. Some officials believe the case should have been the case should have shouldered part of the blame for the culture that developed in Number 10 during lockdowns. And as most of the senior civil servant, he should have spoken up for the junior ministers, or at least the junior staffers, caught in the inquiry. Mike Clancy, the General Secretary of the Prospect Union representing the civil servants, said, "The scale of these breaches of the law is clearly symptomatic of a deeper damaging culture at the heart of Downing Street. Ministers in this government are far too quick to blame officials when it is they who are responsible for taking the lead when it comes to setting the culture." Civil servants were contacted on Wednesday by the Cabinet Office liaising with the Met, who acknowledged that it was a, quote, challenging time and warned that a small number of the 126 fines remain to be issued in the coming days. Johnson is not expected to give his own response to the completion of the Met's investigation until Gray publishes her full report. Officials say that it remains possible that the final report could include photographs used as evidence, but these are unlikely to be of the parties in progress or show individuals. A decision has also yet to be made on the naming of any individuals involved. And although if this did happen, it would not only be for people at senior grades. A source said the report, which was being updated before being sent to lawyers, would be a sober tone. I don't think there would be any salacious details not heard before. It would be quite dry, but it will set out the facts and people can assess those as they choose. Conservative backbenchers who previously called for Johnson's removal say that next week will be a moment of truth for colleagues who have withheld their judgment about his fate. As we said at the beginning, many Conservatives start all this saying, well, we'll wait until the full Sue Gray report. We'll wait until the full Sue Gray report. We've seen the preliminary report. It does not look good. Other people who have seen the report already have stressed this does not look good. Boris received a fine. And then still, let's wait for the full report. Some of these people I do not think are going to move. I do not know which direction they're going to move. But as we said, given the numbers, there's about 84 MPs who remain sort of undeclared either way, either, for or against him remaining or staying. They're the ones who are eventually going to decide it. But we don't know what's going to happen. We really don't know what's going to happen next week. But it will be interesting. Anyway, one comment from a Conservative said, if Gray's report is published next week, there is going to be they're going to run out of road and they're going to have to make a decision, which is, as we said, they're going to have to, make a decision. While the Met will face further questions about its handling of the investigation, Lou Devonnell, the leader of the Labour group of London Assembly, said, I think the police and the crime committee will want to ask questions and understand how the Met have reached their conclusions about the Prime Minister only getting one fine, he said. I think from the information in the public domain that Johnson, has got away lightly. And if it is for the police to actually justify why there was only just one. The Met's acting deputy commissioner, Helen Ball, said that the fines were issued for the breaches after the detectives scoured more than 500 photos plus emails, CCTV, and door logs to see who was where and when. Our view is that these 126 referrals are clear-cut. We made sure after a really thorough investigation and clear evidence existed of a breach, he said. So, what now? What now for Partygate? Well, ultimately, as we've said, this isn't going to go away. Even if after this is all over, this isn't going to go away. Even in 2 years, if we come up to the next general election, this Partygate stuff is not going to go away. People are still angry at the way the Conservative government has acted over this. And if now that all these ones who have been delaying, oh well, let's wait for the full report. Well, the report's out now, guys. Which way are you going to go? And ultimately, they have also been facing a lot of anger from their local parties, who again have lost local councillors and lost seats or even lost control of councils. That anger has been kicked up to their MPs of that region. There is a lot of anger in the Conservative Party, the shall we say, parliamentary Conservative Party. So this Sue Gray report could just light a whole new fire. But will it get rid of Johnson? A lot of people have said that the full report will push Johnson to resign. Will he resign? I doubt it. Will this be finally the thing that gets rid of him? Who knows? Needless to say, next week's going to be interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting. So, as always, please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And, of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and one donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And, as always, thank you very much to all those who do support the channel that way. And, of course, we'll see you all next.